For tonight's video, I thought I would get my wife's dream catcher in the video. If you want to order one, let me know. Wanted to just say that tonight we're going to do something different. I have two translations. One, they're both online, and I will post the links to both. This is The Secret of the Golden Flower. We're just going to use two tonight. We could actually do three, but I figured we'd just do two. Thomas Cleary's 1991 translation. And then we have another one, and I don't know who did this one. Well, maybe, let's see. Now I'm seeing Walter Sell. Looks like, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll have to look him up. But there's another academic named Monica Esposito. And I just looked her up on Wikipedia, and she has done, or she passed now in 2011. And Cleary also has passed. And Monica Esposito was an Italian scholar who did a lot of work on The Secret of the Golden Flower. So we're going to read, I guess it's Walter Sell or Seal, I can't tell. It's very small. We're going to use his, and we're going to use Thomas Cleary's translation. And one of the reasons we're doing this is because this is such a short chapter. This is chapter 7, and it's called The Living Method of Turning Around the Light. And I'm going to read Cleary's translation first. The Living Method of Turning the Light Around. That's his translation. It's not too different than the other one. Okay, so let's read it. Let's see what the difference is between the two translations. Okay, it's only 4 paragraphs. Paragraph 1. As you go along practicing turning the light around, you need not give up your normal occupation. An ancient said, quote, when matters come up, one should respond. When things come up, one should discern. Okay, so let's just read the whole thing, and then we'll read the other one, and then we'll look at them side by side. Paragraph 2, if you manage affairs with accurate mindfulness, then the light is not overcome by things, so it will do to repeat this formless turning around of the light time and again. Paragraph 3, if you can look back again and again into the source of mind, whatever you are doing, not sticking to any image of person or self at all, then this is, quote, turning the light around wherever you are, unquote. This is the finest practice. Paragraph 4, in the early morning, if you can clear all objects from your mind and sit quietly for 1 or 2 hours, that is best. Whenever you are engaged in work or dealing with people, just use this, quote, looking back, unquote, technique, and there will be no interruption. If you practice in this way for 2 or 3 months, the realized ones in heaven will surely come to attest to your experience. So the living method of turning the light around. I think the main import of this chapter is that you do not need to change much at all. You can take this practice into your daily life, right? You don't have to change your life necessarily, but you can bring this practice into everything you do. And in that sense, you could say it's a kind of tantra being something like that you can bring into your everyday experience, into the mundane experience, and that can be as great a practice as meditating in a cave or in a forest or whatever it might be. Now, I also want to mention that on this channel, I've been doing a lot about A Course in Miracles, and A Course in Miracles is the same thing, that you don't necessarily need to change your living conditions. You don't need to change your occupation. You don't need to change your relationship or relationships, but you can bring this to everything that you do. In a sense, that's what it's for. It's to make all of your, this is the Course's terminology. terminology, but it's to make all of your special relationships holy relationships, right? You transform all of your special relationships, which are ego-based, into holy relationships, which is following the Holy Spirit, right? The light of love and wisdom, essentially. So, with that said, we're going to go to the other translation. And I'm going to look this guy up. Walter Sell, I guess his name is. I'll look him up for next time. But here's his translation, The Living Method of Turning Around the Light. Paragraph 1, Master Lu, and in parentheses, Dongbin, said, when you follow the teaching of turning around the light, a man doesn't need to give up his ordinary occupation in doing it. The ancients said, quote, deal with things that come up, see through things that arise. If one is mindful when handling one's affairs, the light is not scattered by things, but turns around naturally. This is a formless way of turning around the light, which works. Moreover, there is also the true method of turning around the light. That's a little, don't know what that means exactly, but this only has 3 paragraphs, by the way. The other one has 4. So that paragraph seemed to combine 1 and 2 of the other one. So here we go, number 2. When dealing with things, if one can turn one's own light inward upon oneself from moment to moment without any attachment to oneself or other people, this is turning the light around wherever you are. This is the best use. Paragraph 3, in the early morning, it is best if one can rid oneself of all attachments and sit quietly for a few hours. If one does the method of turning one's own light inward upon oneself during one's daily activities, and this can be continued without any interruption, then after 2 or 3 months, the immortals in heaven will surely come to attest to your experience. Okay, I noted some differences there. I don't know if you noted some differences, but let's look at it side by side now. Here we go. Here's Cleary's translation, paragraph 1. As you go along practicing turning the light around, you need not give up your normal occupation. What does the other one say? Master Lu said, so he doesn't even mention Master Lu there. I don't know why, but maybe he had a different text. Master Lu said, when you follow the teaching of turning around the light, a man doesn't need to give up his ordinary occupation in doing it. So that one had a man, right? This one is more direct. You need not give up your normal occupation. The ancients said, deal with things that come up, see through things that arise. And this one says, an ancient said, it doesn't say the ancient says, this is Cleary's translation. It says, an ancient said, when matters come up, one should respond. When things come up, one should discern. I think Cleary's translation is a little clearer there. You know, when matters come up, one should respond. When things come up, one should discern. The other one is a little bit, well, they're both, you know, pretty much the same, but see through things that arise, I think, is not as understandable or accessible as when things come up, one should discern. If one is mindful when handling one's affairs, the light is not scattered by things, but turns around naturally. If one is mindful when handling one's affairs, the light is not scattered by things, but turns around naturally. And the other one says, if you manage affairs with accurate mindfulness, very similar, then the light is not overcome by things, so it will do to repeat this formless turning around of the light time and again. Okay, so listen to the next sentence in the other, not the Cleary translation, but the other one. This is a formless way of turning around the light, which works. So this idea of being formless. What does formless mean there? I think it means that this can be applied to any form, right? Anything in form, this practice of turning the light around can be used, right? in that sense, it's formless. If one is mindful when handling one's affairs, the light is not scattered by things, but turns around naturally. So you practice mindfulness. Both of these, note the mindfulness. In the mindfulness, you can turn everything back to what's happening in your mind, right? And deal with everything with discernment. And the other translation says, moreover, there is also the true method of turning around the light. It doesn't have that in Cleary's translation, I don't think. But anyway, let's go on. Cleary's translation. If you can look back again and again into the source of mind, whatever you are doing, not sticking to any image of person or self at all, then this is, quote, turning the light around wherever you are. This is the finest practice. Let's see what the other one says. When dealing with things, if one can turn one's own light inward upon oneself with a capital S from moment to moment without any attachment to oneself or other people, this is the turning the light around wherever you are. This is the best use. And the other one said this is the finest practice. It's a little different, right? So you turn the light around. You look back again into the source of mind, right? Not sticking to any image of person or self at all. And the other one says, without any attachment to oneself or other people. Okay, so it's not about what's going on outside of yourself, it's what's going on inside your mind, right? You keep turning it back to what is happening in my mind. Now, the other translation, you turn one's own light inward upon oneself, the capital S. The other one says, you look back again into the source of mind. Now, you could say semantics, right? Source of mind, self, same thing, right? Well, maybe yes, maybe no. All right, moving on, Cleary, number 4. In the early morning, if you can clear all objects from your mind and sit quietly for 1 or 2 hours. I already know this is different because the other one says a few hours. Few means 3. This is 1 or 2 hours. That is best. Whenever you are engaged in work or dealing with people, just use this, quote, looking back, unquote, technique, and there will be no interruption. If you practice in this way for 2 or 3 months, the realized ones, and the other one says the immortals, not the realized ones, in heaven will surely come to attest to your experience. So let's look at the other one. In the early morning, that's the same. It is best if one can rid oneself of all attachments. And the other one says if you can clear all objects from your mind. It's a little different, but you're ridding yourself of attachments. Well, objects are not necessarily bad if you're not attached to them, right? So you're ridding yourself of all attachments and sit quietly for a few hours versus 1 or 2 hours. Maybe not a biggie, but 3 hours is a long time, for most people. 1 or 2 hours is a long time. If one uses the method of turning one's own light inward upon one's self, again with the capital S, during one's daily activities, and this can be continued without any interruption, then after 2 or 3 months, the immortals in heaven will surely come to attest to your experience. It's interesting that the language is almost exactly the same for some of this, like the realized ones in heaven. So it doesn't say the immortals, it says the realized ones in Cleary's, but the rest of it is the same. The realized ones in heaven will surely come to attest to your experience. So who was using whose translation here? Because that's too similar to be just, like if you're translating Chinese characters, I'm assuming the Chinese characters don't say what that says. It says something like that, but you would then have to translate that into English, and just almost, it has to be that one of them borrowed from the other in that, I would think. So, I've been translating the Bhagavad Gita, and, I use a lot of the same language of other translators. Sometimes it's very, very similar, if not exactly the same, but I will change different words if I think that one word is better than another, seems better, more appropriate, and sometimes I'll change the wording around, etc., etc. But, it's like in the Gospels, scholars say that Matthew and Luke really used Mark's Gospel because they quote Mark's Gospel almost verbatim in many, many places. So you would think that they now they either use Mark's Gospel or they all used a gospel that no one knows about, and scholars call that Q, the Q source. But if you don't have a Q source, let's just suppose you don't have a Q source, then it's almost that someone had to be borrowing from another, right? It's a very interesting scholarly observation, and an important one because it does make you question who was borrowing from who, or who was borrowing from whom, and was Cleary borrowing from, then we'd have to look at the Wilhelm translation and see how much Cleary might have been borrowing from that translation, or did he just is it very different? We'd have to look at it. So we don't have that one right now, but so let's talk. That was all about the form, but let's talk about the content of what this is saying. Again, I think this is really important in terms of fundamental spiritual principles, which is that for most of us, we live in the world, right? We have a family, or we have work in the world, and we're doing stuff, and we're engaged in mundane daily activities, and most of the time the world does not seem very spiritually minded, although we might be very spiritually minded. And this practice is a way of bringing your spiritual practice into everything you do, and that seems to be one of the greatest practices, if not the greatest practice, or the only practice, really, because if you can't bring it into everything you do, then what good is it? And this is very far from, as an example, this is not to put anyone down or anything, but going to church on Sunday, you get religion, for an hour or two, and then you go about the rest of your week, and it's not necessarily informed by religion so much, or maybe it is a little bit, but not necessarily to this extent, which is getting to the root cause of suffering, right? the source of your mind, and obviously not everyone is into that, or is ready for that, or is finds that to be something worthwhile. I guess if you are here listening to this, then you probably do, and we're going to continue. I don't know if we're going to do what we did tonight with all of these, but the shorter ones, we might do this again. But the next one is chapter 8, The Secret of Freedom, and that's a long one, so we'll do that. And actually, chapter 9 is short, so maybe we'll do this again, chapter 9. So thanks for listening, and I hope this was helpful, and please feel free to leave comments, like and subscribe or whatever, and we'll keep on keeping on. We're going to be moving to Hawaii very soon, a couple days, so you'll see me in a different environment soon, and I'm going to try to keep the videos going I'm gonna, I'm committed to at least one a day, but maybe up to 3 a day or more. We'll see. All right. Thank you. See you soon.